The standard gauge railway from Nairobi to Mombasa has been marred with so much international and public scrutiny. Arguably, the standard gauge railway is the largest infrastructure project in Kenya since independence and has attracted so much criticism from allegations of racial discrimination, a World Bank scandal, ticket scandal in Kenya, and neo-colonialism rhetoric through the debt entrapment. But the most controversial has been the secrecy regarding the commercial contracts entered into between the government of Kenya and the government of China. In 2019, in an interview with TV journalist, former President Uhuru Kenyatta vowed to make the SGR contract public. However, he never made the contracts public. This led to a public palpable tension amid growing concerns that allegedly the Kenya Port Authority had been used as collateral in case Kenya defaults in paying off its loans to China. Recently, the SGR contracts were made public. However, what they revealed left many Kenyans baffled. The standard gauge railway has been the subject of much speculation, and because nature abhors a vacuum, conspiracy theories rose from the ashes and are currently settling on the Google search engines. Here's a brief history of the Kenyan standard gauge railway. The standard gauge railway is an integral part of Kenya's Vision 2030 that was conceived to ease cargo transport congestion, relieve Kenyan roads from damage by heavy axle load vehicles, and this was to be done by making use of standard equipment such as locomotives and rolling stock. However, the standard gauge railway had an even wider ambition in East Africa that saw a tripartite agreement entered into between the following countries: Kenya, Uganda, and subsequently Rwanda, on the development of SGR to develop a seamless railway network. The rail network is believed to extend to Eastern DRC and South Sudan. This is believed to open new markets and boost trade within the East African community. In 2009, the government of Kenya and the government of China signed a MOU where the China Road Bridge Corporation offered to carry out a feasibility study and preliminary designs over the SGR from Mombasa to Nairobi, which was at no cost to the government of Kenya. The feasibility study was also subject to the Kenya Railways Corporation review and approval. The National Treasury of Kenya and Exim Bank of China signed a MOU on financing of the SGR. The MOU was considered not to be legally binding. Now we're going to discuss the tenets of the SGR contracts, which are project financing, tendering, take or pay agreement, non-disclosure agreement, and the debt sustainability. The government of China, through the China Road and Bridge Corporation, a subsidiary of the China Communications Construction Company Limited, sought to finance an estimated $3.6 billion through China's Exim Bank for the construction of the standard gauge railway. The construction of the railway's infrastructure envisaged civil works, procurement of facilities, locomotives, Embakasi Inland Depot expansion, supervision, cost insurance premium, to the exclusion of taxes and other statutory expenses. The financing conceptually entailed a concessional loan of $1.6 billion with a maturity period of 20 years, a grace period of 7 years, while attracting an interest of 2% per annum. Secondly, a commercial loan of $1.633 billion with a maturity period of 10 years and a grace period of 5 years. Thus, 90% of the project was to be financed by the Chinese loan, while 10% would be financed by the government of Kenya through the Railway Development Levy. The loan was to be insured by Chinese firm China Export and Credit Insurance Corporation, Sinosure, with no local broker. In 2009, the China Road Bridge Corporation conducted a feasibility studies of the railway network from Mombasa to Nairobi at no cost to the Kenyan government. The feasibility study was reviewed by the Kenya Railways Corporation. However, while the government conducted due diligence, mischief was brewing in another state department. In a special report by a parliamentary committee, the committee discovered mischief that was going on at the Registrar of Companies. While the China Road Bridge Corporation was registered as a foreign company in Kenya on 28 December 1984, a further local company was subsequently registered on 23 December 2008 and had a similar name, that is China Road and Bridge Corporation, Kenya Limited. According to the parliamentary report on the investigative findings of the local company, it was asserted allegedly that the company's nature of work was not known as its memorandum and articles of association were missing at the registry. The local company had also never filed audited accounts nor filed returns with the Registrar of Companies. The findings cast a spotlight on the Registrar of Companies, who claimed that the local company was inadvertently registered and that they directed the local company to effect a change of name. The parliamentary report also states, and I must state, allegedly, that the directors of the local company were summoned before the committee. However, they never graced them with their presence. On to the second, the most contentious tenet of the SGR contract, that is the tendering process. The tendering process of the SGR has brought so much contention and discontent among Kenyans. This is because the SGR contract was premised on a turnkey contract in that China was to plan, design, and construct the SGR. This variance and a public palpable tension found its way to the corridors of justice. In a court case, the petitioners argue that the SGR project was in violation of the provisions of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act and Article 227 of the Kenyan Constitution that aptly states that a state organ or a public entity that contracts for goods and services must do it in a manner that's fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective. Their claims were premised on that the SGR tendering process lacked a competitive bidding and there was a presence of conflict of interest. This is because the China Road Bridge Corporation initiated and undertook the feasibility study, design, and costing of the project. Following the feasibility study, the China Road Bridge Corporation was awarded the tender to construct the SGR. The Kenya Railways Corporation had initially used a direct method of procurement while awarding the tender to the China Road Bridge Corporation over the construction of the standard gauge railway. However, much later, the Kenya Railways Corporation asserted that the most appropriate method of procurement was government to government. Therefore, the government-to-government procurement method does not violate the provisions of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act because it does not fall within the ambit of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. The court opined in that matter that the SGR project was a contract between the government of Kenya and the government of China, and hence government-to-government was the appropriate mode of procurement. In regard to the claims of the conflict of interest, the court reiterated that the SGR contract was government to government and therefore conditions had already been stipulated. With that, the court dismissed the petitioner's claims. Despite the court pronouncements, in an underreported news, it was revealed that the China Road and Bridge Corporation was embroiled in a global scandal. On July 29, 2011, the World Bank Group, a global financial institution, allegedly claimed that China Communications Construction Company Limited was embroiled in a corruption scandal in the Philippines. The World Bank Group debarred China Communications Construction Company Limited and its subsidiaries, which includes the China Road and Bridge Corporation, from participating in any of its projects for the period of the year starting January 2009 to January 2017, following an investigation of the National Roads Improvement and Management Project over fraud allegations, corruption allegations, and flouting procurement regulations for a road project they undertook in the Philippines. Subscribe for part 2 to determine whether Kenya defaulted on its loan.